all. Welcome to the Outsmart Overeating podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Hooper, and alongside me is Coach Steph Miramontes. Today, I thought we would spend a little time talking about some signs that you have an unhealthy or dysfunctional relationship with exercise. Now, speaking from personal experience, I was someone who grew up pretty active, played team sports throughout my entire childhood. In my family, we were spending the weekends doing different tournaments between my sports and my brother's athletic pursuits. And so it was a big part of my family culture and dynamic to be playing around various sports. And so for me, growing up, it really was about movement, was about friendly competition and just seeing what you're physically capable of. Competition that was fun and also challenged you and let you know what you were made of, so to speak. So after college, organized sports wasn't really so much a thing in my life anymore. And I would say that I moved to a new city, Dallas, didn't really know anyone. And so I've talked about this in the past, where I decided to go to a gym to meet like-minded people. And Steph, I know you know, enter gym culture, right? Suddenly, what was, my passion for movement turned aesthetic. And suddenly, it wasn't so much about play and performance and team camaraderie. It was more about, how do you look? How many calories are you eating? How many miles are you running? How much weight are you deadlifting? And again, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. However, me being a bit obsessive and hyper-focused turned what could have been just a hobby into a full-blown, I would say, obsession. And yes, I became super fixated on the numbers. Steph, I know you probably resonate with some part of this story. It's not a new one by any means. Many of our restrictor clients have a similar background. I'd like to hear a little bit about your experience with maybe developing an unhealthy relationship with exercise, or did you even? I don't even know if you really ever did in the way I did.
Not really. Yeah, not really. Exercise was something for me, when I was younger, it was all about weight loss. I mean, I was signed up for gymnastics when I was younger, and they were like, no, gymnastics is not for this chubby little thing. And then I got put into dance when I was younger, and they were like, this girl can't even pay attention. Like, cannot. So that was my ADHD shining through, I think. And then years later, they re-enrolled me in dance. They had told her, let's give her a few years. Like she can't. So I re-enrolled and I did dance clogging for a lot of years competitively, and I loved it. I was really good. I can still do it. I actually have thought many a time. I'm like, I should get on Amazon and buy me some clogging shoes. That would probably be really fun. So I did dance for a while, and then when I got into gym culture, that was really liberating for me because I spent several kind of in between years doing thigh master shit and as seen on TV exercise programs and just whatever I could get my hands on to lose weight. I never really felt like it was disordered though. I didn't feel like there was this huge transactional relationship where I was counting all the calories I was burning and things like that based on the food that I was eating. It didn't feel that way to me. It just felt like a necessary part of trying to get thin was to exercise. And I had no concept of how much that required or anything else until my later years. And in my later years, I had already bought into, man, I have never really been athletic. I was someone who tried softball and I was more kicking rocks and counting butterflies. Like there was nobody was picking me to be on their team. I'll tell you that right now. I couldn't even tie my own damn shoes, like tripping over my own feet. It was ridiculous. But when I got into weightlifting, I found my sport. And so it was just a complete and total shift for me. It was a different attitude. Now, did I become obsessed with my body as someone who was lifting weights? Yes. I was like, okay, I need to earn this shoulder bump. I need to earn the bicep vein. I need to get jacked. I need, like all of that did tie in, but I still don't feel like I ever had a super disordered relationship with exercise. Not really.
Yeah. I mean, again, I feel like with my background, movement was just all about play and fun. And it wasn't until I kind of got immersed into that gym culture and started hanging out with the people and attending the bodybuilding shows on the weekends. And I noticed myself starting to decline invitations to go out with friends and colleagues that weren't in the community, so to speak. And even being so concerned with missing a workout or being in an environment where there was alcohol or high calorie foods like restaurants where I couldn't control myself around. And so, of course, the gym, and y'all, movement, athleticism, that is my jam. That is where I got a lot of my, I guess, growing up, my self-esteem, maybe because I really was a good athlete and I got a lot of acknowledgement for that. And of course, as a human, we love getting that kind of feedback. And generally, we like to do things that we're good at. Otherwise, we stop. And so it was just kind of an area where I was able to shine. So it felt really good. But I didn't ever really feel like I reached my full potential when it came to the gym. I was never lean enough. Maybe structurally, genetically, my skeletal frame wasn't the right kind of frame to get on stage and compete or whatever. I mean, I had all these issues, which looking back on it is hilarious because there's no such thing as, a perfect body. But in the bodybuilding industry, there really is. And so that's, I think, where part of the obsession came in, similar to what you were saying, is it was more in a quest to achieve a certain aesthetic ideal. And because you get hyper fixated on it, you are in the gym for longer hours a period, or longer hours and unable to maybe take those rest days. And that's something that I've struggled with. I've talked about feeling guilty for not burning enough calories or being afraid that, if I wasn't exercising, then I was obviously gaining weight. There was nothing in between. And there was a lot of, I guess, punishing exercise that happened for me. And that's what I want to talk about, is for our exercise peeps who might recognize that they have an unhealthy relationship with exercise. What does that actually look like? What are some signs that might help you identify, okay, this is like a little too neurotic, or this is maybe starting to dip into what I would determine being afraid, like rooted in fear and not good enoughness. So, did you experience any of those thoughts or feelings as well?
The one thing that I resonate with that you were saying was being unwilling to skip a workout, because that was something that I do remember making plans to go to the gym on a Saturday, which again is not that big a deal, except for, I had a bunch of kids and we lived in an apartment and like the gym was real close by. And I'm like, okay, we're going to make sure we have a pool day. You guys go to the pool. I'm going to go work out. Like, it was very much like I had to get my workout in no matter what. And again, no problems with that, except for I didn't want to be the person that was like, oh, we're going to go to Disneyland, but where's the gym, kind of thing. And so that I did kind of have an advantage in that when I started weightlifting and stuff, I was in certain communities that had a little bit more of a reasonable expectation of that. I think if I would have fallen into a different bodybuilding community, it would have been very much like double cardios all day, every day, like that kind of shit. And I didn't buy into any of that. But the fear piece does resonate, although it wasn't very loud in my head, it was very important to me. It was the only thing in my mind at that time. My brain was so hyper focused on, gym tan laundry. Basically, like I was all in when it came to working out. And so I didn't have any other thoughts. That was just, I immersed myself like many people that become personal trainers do, right?
Yes.
They obsess about the gym and then they become personal trainers so that they can continue to obsess about the gym and be paid for it.
Precisely. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely scratched a lot of my itches in life. I think it fulfilled a lot of value in terms of being able to meet like-minded people, even if they were a bit on the extreme side, right? And I was one in the gym twice daily, oftentimes with my gym buddies, right? So like we'd meet at the gym before work and then like after work. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started, maybe breaking down some of these signs that I think hint at, yes, maybe we are starting to drift into unhealthy terrain or territory, or shit, maybe you're already there and you just don't even realize it yet. Or maybe you do realize it, but you don't know how to backtrack without being fearful of weight gain or feeling like you need to be in control. Those were the two things for me that I was constantly kind of on the brink of a binge. And so I felt like I had to constantly be compensating for maybe what I had eaten or what I felt like I was about to eat or whatever the case may be. And so that really is the first one that I want to talk about, Steph, is using exercise as a way to punish yourself for food choices, quote unquote, bad food or alcohol or whatever the case may be, and or just overeating in general. Usually the two, there's some overlap there. But I know that there was a lot of language, and still probably is, I just don't follow those people on social media anymore, but around the narrative of also what you allow yourself to eat or the amounts kind of determine like your exercise for the day or vice versa. So if it was leg day, for example, I was able to eat like maybe I justified eating more carbs or more, I don't know, go into a restaurant or whatever. I was always kind of like bargaining more
Yeah.
calories now for more exercise later kind of thing. So what do you think about the first one? Exercise as a way to kind of punish yourself for your food choices or overeating.
Well, that's kind of what I mean by a transactional relationship, right? With food and exercise. And I've had many a client come to me and say, I have the hardest time losing weight because I don't like to exercise. And I'm like, not a problem. We can actually work with that. That's no big deal. If you think that exercise alone is a good strategy for weight loss, you will be sorely disappointed in your energy expenditure versus like the effort that you put in versus the reward that you get. It's just not that great. But it is just kind of in your mind. And I see those posts on social media, usually around the holidays and things like that. Like the famous ones are like around
Do
Easter.
8,968
Yeah.
burpees to earn
How
your,
many burpees to get your
yeah,
mini Snickers bar? Like that kind of bullshit
yeah,
goes around the interwebs and things like that. So it's just very transactional, and it's such an inefficient and ineffective way to lose weight, and it gets embedded into your psyche to this point where now exercise becomes this fear-based thing instead of this thing that helps you with your endorphins and makes you feel good and is a health promoting activity and things like that. Now it's this emotional attachment that you rely on and you fear missing, which is exhausting. And it's not that effective. It's just a shitty way to go about it.
yeah. It's probably the worst tool in your toolbox for weight loss, honestly. And it's one of the first things people think about is I got to exercise to lose weight. You actually don't. And I would counter that with you're probably better off trying to get to the bottom of the reasons why you overeat in the first place. That'd probably be a better use of your time than feeling inclined to walk 10,000 steps a day if we're talking weight loss through the lens of weight loss. I'm not discouraging anybody from walking, y'all, so don't at me anywhere. I'm just saying if we want to get really clear on how to lose weight, we have to get very interested on the reasons why you're overeating in the first place and try to solve for the right problem, because that's just a band-aid solution. And like you said, Steph, you're going to be very disappointed because it is slow moving and a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of effort for very little reward if you're motivated by weight loss. Now, if you just work out because you love the way it makes you feel, and I think that there's something to be said for wanting to get stronger, maybe look a bit more lean, jack, definition, whatever. But that's like exercising for hobby, some of that stuff when we get to a more lean place, I guess. And so let's not get it twisted that that's not always the best way to go about weight loss. Anything you want to add to that before we shift gears here?
No, I have something to add, but I think we'll probably get to it a little later in the episode, so I'll just zip it for now.
Thank God. I'm so glad you decided to zip it. I can barely deal with your nonsense. All right, let's move on. Then the second one I feel like is you feel guilty when you miss a workout, right? And for some clients, this was not my personal belief, but it is something that I hear more from our permitter clients is they feel guilty and there's a fear that if they miss one, it's like the beginning of the end. Like, uh-oh, here we go. This is a very familiar feeling of starting to fail. And so doesn't seem to be a whole lot of nuance for people who are living in the gray and learning how to have a plan and then pivot when the plan doesn't, can't be followed through or whatever the case may be. I mean, that's life. Shit happens. You're going to have to learn to make different decisions under different circumstances. And you can't be afraid that, everything's going to fall apart. So what would you like to add about the feeling guilty when you miss the workout?
Well, it just adds to this, or maybe confirms this whole belief system that this is not something you want to do. It's something you have to do. Because if I miss a workout, I have no thought about it because I am someone who works out. I'm someone who trains. I'm someone who exercises. It is who I am as a person. It's part of my makeup and the fabric of my life. I have enough practice in it, enough years of proving to myself that a missed workout is not going to be the beginning of the end. Now, other things in my life, sure, but you just can tell that there's some serious convincing and hard talk and willpower that is driving this bus. And that's where the fear comes from. If they're afraid, hey, if I miss a workout, then I may not be able to get back on track. Well, that's because you don't want to be doing it anyway. You don't have clean reasons. You don't have good reasons. And then it's all tied to self-esteem and self-worth, which is usually tied to weight loss.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that is much more of a perspective of, the restrictors tend to be the over exercisers. The permitters are the ones who are generally fearful of, like, is this isn't going to last kind of mentality. And for anyone who hasn't taken the restrictor permitter quiz, that link is in the show notes. That is what I'm referencing as the 2 diet personality types. So check that out. Make sure you take that quiz so you can get some additional resources on once you identify yourself as one or the other, what steps do you need to take to navigate weight loss with your particular brand of psychology? All right, so let's move on to number 3. You prioritize exercise over important life events. So, kind of like your Disney example, spending time with family and friends. I mean, look, I do think that the circumstances here matter and the reasons, because I've talked in the past how I have been somebody to exercise on Thanksgiving Day, mainly love my family, but to get away from my family. It's a lot of family time when you travel and you're there. And I need like a breather. That's very different than like, I need to make sure that I burn off a bunch of calories because I know I'm about to eat my face off this afternoon. So again, understanding the reasons and your motivation behind it, I think, is going to be the difference maker here. But most of the time, my need to work out when traveling or was again rooted in fear and trying to control my body. Steph?
Yeah, I think that there's a very big difference in making working out or training or exercise a priority and prioritizing it over things that are important to you. And you know that you're doing it if something is going on in your life to where you can't do it and you sit around like a pissy pants, upset and frustrated that you didn't get to the gym. Ask me how I know. So, because that was very much an example of like, okay, well, if we wanted to go do something on a Saturday that wasn't a pool day with the kids, then I'm like, well, how am I going to get my workout in? And like that kind of stuff. And so when you think about Thanksgiving, and I don't think you prioritized working out over something that was important to you. I think you spent time with your family over and that was good and you got your quality time in, and then you took some time for yourself. That's called a boundary. That's called self-care. That's nice. You could have just as easily done, going for a nature walk or, shopping. I don't know, whatever's open on Thanksgiving. But there are a million things you could have done to give yourself a timeout or a break. You just chose physical activity. I don't find that to be problematic, but what would be problematic is sitting around feeling like shit because you can't get to the gym because the gym closes at noon and that's what time your family's doing Thanksgiving, and
Well,
like blah, blah.
and like the other reason I said, because there were Christmases where I also ate my face off. And then that night I went to the 24-hour gym, and here I am punishing myself for what I ate earlier that day, or, just looking for more reasons to abuse myself, basically.
So
So,
this one reminds me of more of a restrictor personality type than the permitter personality type.
oh, for sure. Without a doubt. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the fourth sign that you are probably in a dysfunctional relationship with exercise. And I do think we've mentioned it, or I've mentioned it a few times here. And it's similar, right? Like a fear of taking a day off because of weight gain. And in my case, I want to just kind of explicitly say there was an underlying fear that on the days that I didn't exercise, I was more likely to binge or overeat. And so I kind of used the gym as an escape because I didn't trust myself at home. And if I'm not at home, I'm not eating in the gym. It was a kind of a safe place, so to speak, for me to go.
So this is the one that I actually kept my mouth shut about earlier, because this is exactly where my brain went. It's like, oh, well, if I start my day off strong, if I'm good because I have a gym day, if it's not an off day, it's so much easier for me to eat better because I already started it good. But if I knew that it was going to be like an off day or whatever, and not me in particular, this actually wasn't necessarily my issue. I was either all on or all off for big blocks of time. But it is something that clients go through. It is something that a lot of folks that we interact with go through, where it's just, hey, if I'm good, I'm real good. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to work out. And so I'm going to eat healthy and I'm going to eat right. But if it's a rest day, then I'm going to sit around and feel shitty and I'm going to pout and I'm going to overeat. And that's a trigger for me because I don't think it's a weight loss day if I'm not exercising, which is just ridiculous.
Oh man, I have so much empathy for our old brains, for our old way of living and our old beliefs. Okay, but I think I just learned something new about you. Did you just say that like when you were off, you were off? Did that mean exercise and eating at the same time? Okay,
No,
because I was like, I needed clarity on that because I was never off from exercise. I was
no.
only off on my eating.
Yeah. Yeah. No. No, 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 no. I was never off from exercise.
Yeah.
We didn't break from that.
Okay. Thank you for that. I thought that was the case, but I don't know. You kind of threw me through a loop there for a second. All right.
Sorry.
So let's talk about number 5. This one, again, highlights what I talked about at the beginning of the episode, just sharing a little bit about my background to set the stage, some context. Maybe you all can relate to some of my story, but exercise just wasn't as fun as it was before for me. Like I enjoyed strength training, do not get me wrong, but the fun was starting to drain out of it because it became more about the numbers and it wasn't really about play anymore. And it was very kind of rigid. And I felt like I had to be in the gym or I had to do this, or it wasn't like an effective workout or it wasn't good enough. And so I was in that headspace that I always had to do like what was optimal or what was planned or what was going to burn the most calories or get me the most muscle or whatever the thoughts were at that time. And so there wasn't as much play or fun involved like there was when I was growing up and moving my body and still pretty fit as an athlete, but just different, right? It was more performance minded, where this was very much about the aesthetic. And so I think the numbers kind of, and chasing whatever was optimal was my priority instead of having fun.
It reminds me of when I was going through, like, I was really in the depths of hell when it came to my yo-yo dieting and going up and down the scale and all of the things. And I had decided I needed to shift my focus from this very aesthetic based training style, this hypertrophy based training style, to something more athletic. I wanted to do something more Olympic weightlifting and some CrossFit type stuff, even though I was never in CrossFit. But I ended up hiring a coach that I got strong as fuck. I was a tank, I will tell you that right now. And I was doing competitive weightlifting. I was having a lot of fun with it. It was brutal and it was hard and it was a lot of work. And I would never do that level of work again. But I admire the version of me that could. She was great. But I remember a coach saying to me at that time, well, you're just doing all of this because you couldn't really get to the whole like get lean, get bodybuilder lean. Like you couldn't get lean enough. So you just, attach yourself to this other style. And at the time, it really hurt me. At the time, that really hurt my feelings because it felt like just a fucked up thing to say. But also, yeah, I did. Like, yes.
That's why it
Yeah.
hurt, because you're like, motherfucker saw right through my insecurity.
Yeah, it tapped on a piece of insecurity, but now years later, as I reflect back on that time, I was so proud of the work that I was doing, and I really needed to shift my focus into something that felt more joyful, more fulfilling, more rewarding, and it was. And I was so proud of the work that I was doing. And so, now I just kind of look back and I'm like, well, yeah, but why is that a problem? That I shifted myself away from needing a 24-inch waist. Like,
Yeah.
who the fuck cares? I was having fun, like how rude. But now I look back and I'm like, okay, but like they weren't wrong in what they were saying, but the intention behind it was like, okay, you know, like sure, but it did affect what I did next. And that's what,
Oh,
as
yeah,
I
that
reflect back,
sucks.
it did impact what I did next. I did end up pulling back. I did end up shifting gears and going back into diet land and trying to get the weight off again and, things like that. And so, because this person was heavily influencing me, it was just somebody that I really looked up to at the time. So, I was just like, man, that was just shitty.
Why, like, what a jackass thing to say, even, like, anyway, all right,
Yeah,
moving on.
whatever.
Well, I mean, I just don't see how the feedback is helpful or useful or, like, productive at all with your client, I guess.
Well, I'll tell you why it was helpful, productive feedback, whatever, was because my body is my business card.
Oh, yeah, of course, that old that old
Uh-huh, the old adage of, "Hey, personal trainer, don't you know you should be walking around as a fucking Skeletor billboard with pumpkin belts?" Like,
yeah, look-alike.
just whatever. Yeah, like,
Okay. Yeah,
exhausting.
well, that just confirms how big of a douche he is, honestly.
I never said it was a he. I
Oh,
said they. I said they. I wasn't
thanks for
giving any
setting the
hints.
record straight. Well, you just clarified things very quickly. All right. Well, let's shift gears, because one thing I do want to talk about briefly that we haven't talked about is the maybe some of the signs that aren't so mental and maybe a bit more physical. So poor recovery, meaning your sleep is shit. Um, Elevated cortisol levels because you don't know how to take a damn day off or relax. You might be someone who's just wound up a little tight and are always on the go, 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 go. And if you are doing, I don't know, CrossFit style workouts 8 days a week, then chances are your recovery is probably not great and you're not getting as much bang for your buck out of your workouts as you could be, because we're not really allowing for that downtime, that rest, which is hugely important. And I will tell you, having worked with so many clients at this point in time, and myself included, my body is much more receptive to building muscle and losing body fat when I'm not in the gym 7 days a week, 2 hours a day. Who would have thought? it's much happier when there's adequate rest in between. So, Steph, what do you want to add here about the recovery piece?
I tell my clients that recovery is training. Rest is training. If you are in it for the long game, if you want to be someone who can hack it the rest of your life and not just burn yourself out, because I know what it feels like to be burned out from this shit. So if you want to be in it for the long game, then rest and recovery is training. That is part of the deal. You want to train like an athlete, you damn well better rest like one and stop pretending that people who are really good at their sport, even if that sport is lifting heavy shit in the gym, don't take off days and don't recover because they understand the value of it. So more plus more plus more does not equal better results. It doesn't give what you think it's going to give. And at some point, we have diminishing returns on effort here.
Absolutely. Also, I mean, look, professional athletes perform through seasons for a reason. They have off time to get stronger, to recover from their injuries, and whatever the case may be. And so, injury being another one of the reasons why you don't want to drive your body into the ground, because an injury can really set you back. And training through injuries is one of the dumbest things that I'm so stubborn and did over and over and over again. So my shit never healed. And I was only able to give like 50% effort. What if I had just taken a week or two off, maybe just off of upper body movement or lower body movement or whatever, worked around it, then I could have healed. But I didn't. Hey, baby, no 0 days off, right? Such
No
problem.
pain, no gain, girl. Like,
Wait, we're about to get there. Hold on a second. We got to get on this seventh reason, right, or sign that you are in an unhealthy relationship with exercise is missed menstrual cycles. Pretty clear indication that there's a good chance if you have poor recovery, you're working out too consistently, very intensely. I shouldn't say consistent because I think depends on what you call a workout. You can do leisurely walks. You can do leisurely bike rides. You can do low intensity things and not have the negative consequences. It's just when we're doing the high intensity shit over and over and over again, where those cortisol levels get raised, we're slashing the calories. The body's like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, we're doing all the things, creating all the stress. And then the menstrual cycle, obviously, is just like peace. We'll catch you when you're stop being such an asshole.
Yeah, it's like, hey, you are depleting all of your energy stores here, and I kind of want you to survive. So let's maybe not produce any sex hormones because we sure as shit don't want you trying to expend energy trying to grow a human. So menstrual cycle is out. And even if you would prefer not to have a menstrual cycle or grow any humans, menstruation is a healthy, normal part of your body's communication style. It lets you know when things are functioning well or not. And some of us are more sensitive to losing our cycles than others. So it's just language, it's just something that your body does. And let's be honest, it's a later sign. So if you've gotten to that point, you've been ignoring and fucking up for a while now. And like, it's yelling at that point. It's just like, bitch, my last straw at this point.
True that. You have probably tripped over many of these signs to get to that one, if that is where you're at. That's the final one. I just thought we needed to at least touch on it, acknowledge it, because I know a large demographic of the clients we work with, and ourselves included, have also missed our menstrual cycle due to over-exercising. So you mentioned no pain, no gain, and I reeled you in for just a second because I do think that this is one of the problems with fitness industry and its messaging. And we've talked about it on the podcast many times. Obviously there's nothing wrong with eating vegetables. There's nothing wrong with having protein consistently. There's nothing wrong with exercising, but the extreme approach is where you lose us or you lose me. It's when some exercise is good, more must be better. That whole go hard, go home. No pain, no gain, like you just said. And so that's just something that I feel like we need to make sure that our listeners are aware of is anytime you're creeping too far into one extreme or the other, meaning zero exercise or all the exercise, both are unhealthy, right? We're trying to create an environment within the Unstuff community with all of our members, our clients, of learning how to live in the gray and create eating habits and exercise habits that feel good and sustainable and produce the results, the desired outcome that you want.
I like to think about exercise the same way that I think about food and nutrition, the minimum effective dose. This does not have to be your full-time job. It doesn't have to consume every thought. Exercise, train for your goals, but do it wisely. Be smart about it. More is not better. Less is not better. We just need the minimum effective dose. And the way that we determine what that is for you is by saying, where are you at now? Where do you want to be? Why do you want to be there? Do you like your reasons? And let's formulate a strategy, a plan to get you where you want to go from this place of, I want to be in it for the long game. If we're trying to rush into a smaller size jeans and that's where your strategy is going to come from, then of course you're going to be impatient. Of course you're going to want to do all the things because you want out of pain. But if you just want to be a fit and athletic person, well, I've got news for you. More is just going to set you back. You need to be intelligent about your choices when it comes to training, which is why people hire people who know these kinds of things.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's take a moment to maybe, now that we've shit all over what unhealthy exercise looks like, we can talk a little bit about what maybe a healthy relationship with exercise is. You just mentioned kind of what's the baseline. In my opinion, it's like, okay, what's the minimum amount we can do and still get our desired result? However, there are people like me who genuinely love exercise. And that's where it's sometimes a little sticky because it's like the brain wants to do more, but the body has other plans. So it's a matter of kind of self-coaching, or at least that's how it used to be. And recognizing when you need to pull back, even though we do want to do the things. You said basically, well, my language here is we do want exercise to be the backup dancer in your life. And if exercise is your only way to entertain yourself or keep yourself preoccupied, or it's your only hobby because you're constantly in the pursuit of weight loss, then it's probably time to develop other interests and hobbies outside of the gym, outside of MyFitnessPal app, outside of the kitchen, and find more play, more variety. I know I've talked about in the past for me, and you even mentioned kind of getting into the powerlifting thing. Well, I wanted to try something new. I still wanted it to be physical, but I wanted to do something that was kind of outside of my comfort zone, something that I'd never done before. And that was jujitsu. I had a client who owned 26 gyms, and was telling me to come try a class. And finally she talked me into it. And y'all, it was so much fun. It was very different from the bodybuilding community I was used to, but it was fun to use my body in a different way that I had never done. And I had an advantage. I was new, so I had no technique, no skill, but I was stronger than all the other girls. So I still was able to put up a good fight for my weight class. So I wouldn't say I was good, but I was strong enough to be competitive. And that was an advantage that I had because of my years of strength training. So Steph, what are some ideas that come to mind for you when when we kind of coach our clients into discovering maybe what a healthy relationship with exercise looks like? I mean, we talk a little bit about making it fun again, taking off the Fitbit, trying new things, maybe not being so married to what's quote unquote optimal, but what else comes to mind for you?
I think it's so hard to create a blanket statement here about what is a healthy relationship with exercise, because a healthy relationship with exercise is really determined on what do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? What is your attitude about it? And are you willing to recover from it and practice it and things like that in a way that doesn't consume you or reduce your self-esteem and self-worth, that your self-worth and self-esteem is not attached to this thing from an external place, right? So and that's different for a lot of people. Some people really need to go back to basics and find some play. They need to join a Zumba class. They need to join a walking group. They need to go on hikes, touch grass, get some fresh air. And other people need to be pushed a little to get their ass in the gym and just try some things and see what comes out of it, because exercise has purpose, and some of it is mental health benefits and some of it is physical health benefits. And there's just a lot in there. So when I think about a healthy relationship with exercise, I think about one that doesn't diminish you and doesn't create a bunch of fear and worry and scarcity and all consuming energy in order to maintain and sustain. I think that it's important to find things that you enjoy doing, and there's a wide variety of ways that you can move and stay open to that. You don't have to be married to one style of thing, one thing to do. There's a lot out there.
Right. I agree. I feel like it comes down to being open to doing things that are not quote unquote optimal, the things that are going to be sustainable. Like you said, going for a hike, going paddleboarding, I don't know, going horseback riding, or trying pickleball for the first time, just being willing to, again, explore, play, have some fun, think outside of the box, and don't always chase the numbers or what's optimal. Moving your body is going to burn calories regardless, right? And you might as well enjoy it. You might as well have fun with it. You might as well create a memory. One of my clients is spending a lot of time kicking the ball in the backyard with her daughter for soccer, and she's really been enjoying that. And I'm like, yeah, get off the Peloton, like go outside. It is nice. Spring is here. Let's do the things, right? We don't just have to be locked in to this one tool because you spent $2,000 or whatever on it. We can expand, and then it doesn't get boring. Then we're not like, I don't know, like you said, get burned out or whatever from doing the same things. We can keep variety and keep things interesting. Steph, I only just want to have one final thought here, and then we'll wrap this baby up. But for those that might be taking offense or feeling guilty listening to this episode because they're not moving, because they haven't started, because they're on the struggle bus, how can we get them? What advice can you give them to feel encouraged to take that step? I'm just going to put a pin in it there.
Couple of things. One of them is to remind them that they do not have to marry their efforts. So if you decide you want to try a weightlifting class, you decide you want to try a spin class or something like that, you are not married and committed to that thing. Feel free to have a little bit of fun with it. Don't just say like, I'm going to do running now and forever, and then you end up hating running. Do something else. Don't hate yourself into burning out on something and then being like, see, I told you I hate exercise. Try some things, be willing to maybe even go back to your childhood. Like I said, I would still tap dance my happy ass all the way down the street. I loved it. I would still jump on a trampoline all day, every day. I love that shit. So I would 100% do those things just for fun. Find ways that you enjoy movement. And if you don't enjoy any of it, then just know that the enjoyment sometimes comes from the achievement of showing up. So there's that piece. The other one is minimum baseline. Find something you can do that is so easy. So like the commitment is so easy that you could not say no to it. Like 5 minutes. Can you walk to the mailbox? Can you walk around the block? Can you commit to the smallest step for a couple of weeks? And then you can build from there. But momentum comes from effort first, and then you'll start feeling like it.
Correct. People think motivation happens before action. It's the opposite. We do something, we take the action, and then we feel motivated a lot of the time because, like you said, there's a sense of accomplishment, there's a reward for taking the action. And so it doesn't matter if you feel like 5 minutes isn't good enough. Well, it beats 0 minutes. We have to start somewhere, and we can build on it from there. The goal is not to even complete the workout or the walk or whatever. It's to start it. That's why I tell clients, it's not to complete it. You can start and then drop whatever you want, but we are going to be the kind of person who creates a habit of showing up and doing the thing we say is important to us. So it's more about cultivating the habit of making a commitment and following through. And you gotta start before you can finish. So we just have to first start. So that's the biggest obstacle for most people, because they think that they have to go hard in order to go home. And that's a problematic narrative in and of itself, right? This is why people feel like it's not good enough, because that is basically what the diet industry has told us. We have to do all the things in order to be successful, but it's not true. Just meet yourself where you're at, start there, and then you can challenge yourself to 5 minutes more, or an extra round around the block, or whatever the case may be. But try not to judge yourself and just take the action. And then once you've taken the action, see where it takes you from there. But you have to start in order to get anywhere. That's a fact. Steph?
The last thing I think I'll say about that is, if it kind of relates to, I think, our first point of skipping, or maybe it was our second, I don't know, skipping a workout being this, like, the beginning of the end. It's not the beginning of the end. It's a skipped workout. Stop being dramatic. That the beginning of the end is not a fact unless you make it a fact. You can just go for your walk tomorrow. I know, novel concept, shocking even. But like, if you feel like you skipped a workout, instead of using all that energy to shit on yourself, use the energy to put your tennis shoes by the front door so that tomorrow morning you get your ass up and go put them on. That's it. That is all it takes, is just deciding in advance that you're not going to sit and argue with yourself, and you're not going to beat yourself up. You're just going to make the next best decision, one decision at a time.
All right, y'all.
Today. I know.
What did you say? You're sassy today?
Yeah, I'm a little sassy today.
Okay, y'all. Well, I feel like we're always a little sassy when we record later in the day than when we record earlier in the day. So there might be a little something to look into there. I don't know. Y'all let us know in the comments section, in our DMs. Do you like sassy stuff, or do you not want the sassy stuff? We're happy to. I know what I want. I want to see the clogging stuff. I feel like you're denying the internet of your clogging abilities. And so that's a real in the making. I will buy your what do you call them? Cloggers? Clogging shoes?
They're just clogging shoes.
Okay. Well, y'all heard it here first. It's going to happen. All right. I hope y'all enjoyed today's episode. Hope you found it helpful. As always, we would love to hear your feedback if you have any questions, or if there's something you'd like us to cover in the future, let us know. We'd be happy to take it into account. I hope you'll have a great week, and we'll catch you next Tuesday.